Hello, this is Mindy from the Weekend Gardener, and today I'm going to show you how to take a cutting from a mulberry and propagate it so that you can get fruit sooner. As in a previous video, I taught you how to start your own mulberry from the seed located in the fruit. And as I discussed before, you're looking at 4 to 10 years before you'll have any fruit production on that tree. Getting a cutting from a mulberry is a much better approach if you want your fruit sooner. Now, I'm going to show you some examples of some cuttings that I've already taken so that you know the difference when you take your own cuttings. Now, the type of cutting that you are looking for is one that is green, such as this. This is actually the new growth, and it will be found at the end of a branch or on the side of the branch. The older growth actually has the dark brown bark, and you don't want that. That is a difficult stem to root. So you're going to look at your mulberry. You're going to find this year's growth that is at least 4 to 6 inches long. And once you have discovered that, you're going to cut it at an angle. And the reason for this, cutting it at an angle, it's better for the tree and it's better for the cutting. Making any type of cut on a tree at an angle prevents water from pooling on that stem or branch and causing that area to rot. Also, cutting at an angle is better for water absorption, and it makes it easier to try to get that cutting into the soil. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your cuttings. So what I'm going to do before I make a new cutting on this is I'm going to pull these leaves off and fruit, because I do not want any leaves touching the soil when I stick my cutting into my container or in the ground. Also, I'm going to remove the fruit so that this cutting doesn't send a lot of energy to ripen that fruit, because that's how this tree propagates itself, or one of the ways. So it will put a lot of energy into fruit production, and in doing so, seed production. Now, once I have removed enough leaves from the stem, I'm going to cut this at an angle. If you don't have pruning shears, you can actually use a nice sharp knife. Now, at this point, you can root it in 3 ways, actually. One way, you can stick your cutting in a vase and root it inside. Another way is you can put a commercial rooting hormone on the bottom, or you can use the honey technique that I've discussed before, because what that does is an antifungal and antibacterial treatment to keep any type of plant disease from entering the cut, or you can just stick it in the ground without anything on the bottom of it, whichever way you would prefer to treat this cutting. The next step in the process is you're going to stick it pretty deep in the ground or a pot, and I'm just using this pot as a demonstration, but you want to make sure that this cutting is relatively secure. Now, if you're doing this inside and this is not receiving direct light, you can actually put this container in a plastic bag, or put a plastic bag over the top of it this way, and create your own greenhouse. Don't do this if the bag is going to be exposed to direct sunlight, because you will cook the plant inside your mini greenhouse. If you are starting your plant outside in the ground, another approach is to make a cloche, and that has been covered in a previous video also, and you just have to look through the Weekend Gardener to find that particular video. The key to using a cloche, though, is make sure it's large enough to cover your cutting and remove the top. That will prevent heat from building up on the inside and cooking your plant, much like the clear plastic bag that we've discussed previously. So, give this propagation technique a try. Before you yank your cutting out, always make sure that it is rooted, though. And that is the only thing that is required to check that, is to gently tug. If it is rooted, there will be some type of resistance. So just keep that in mind when you're using this technique. So until we meet in the garden again, this has been Mindy from the Weekend Gardener.